So, Ethan, a fellow Michigander, I'll start there. What fun to have you on. Thanks so much for taking a minute.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Both a fellow Michigander and how would you describe yourself currently? An Atlantan? Is that
An
the right way to
Atlantan.
say it?
Yes,
An
yeah. I've been
Atlantan
here
there.
long.
So
Yes.
yeah.
You
So what
married
a small
one.
world.
Smart man.
Yeah. It's Georgia Peach, as they
I
are
love.
often referred to.
Yes.
So
Yes.
love
I
love
love
that
it.
city, and an honor to be here with you.
Well, this will be fun. So, I want to start with what you call chatter. And you wrote a book about it, which I
Yeah.
have loved. How do you define chatter?
Chatter is the dark side of your inner voice. And so I always like to clarify that we all have an inner voice. And what scientists might myself use that term, what we're referring to is the ability to silently use language to reflect on some part of your life. And it turns out it's a really, really valuable tool. And you, of course, know this to be true. Molly, we haven't really spoken forever before the 5 minutes before this call, but I know you've relied on your inner voice throughout your life because
Sure.
you're a human being. And so, yeah, have you ever gone over what you wanted to say before an important presentation or interview in your head, like repeated it? Does that
Sure.
sound fair to say?
Yeah, of
You ever
course.
ever talk to
Absolutely.
yourself when you're exercising to motivate yourself?
100%. You bet. Yes.
You ever repeat a phone number in your head to memorize it?
Yes. I mean, I'm
Maybe
54,
less so
I did that.
nowadays.
I did that. I used to do more of that, but 100%. Absolutely. Or
Right? All of those are your inner voice, like working really well. But there's this big problem. I think it's one of the big problems we face in society, which is we have this amazing tool, this ability to use language to reflect on our lives. And when we encounter difficulties, we get rejected. We get bad news. We imagine worst case scenarios. We use this tool, language, to try to work through our problems, but we don't always come up with just crystal clear solutions. We often get stuck. So we keep on going over those problems over and over in our head. We berate ourselves incessantly. I'm an idiot. Such an idiot. Molly, have you ever found that you are exceptionally creative in the ways you can describe yourself as an idiot? Like there are all sorts of fun adjectives you can use, right?
Absolutely,
you
yes.
you repeat those things, or you keep, going over the same scenarios. You don't make any forward progress. That's what chatter is. It's getting stuck in a negative thought loop that can be incredibly destructive to our lives. And so that's why I've devoted my career to trying to figure out when you find yourself activating this dark side of your inner voice, when you find yourself slipping into these moments of chatter, what can you do to pull yourself out of those moments? And it turns out there's quite a lot that you can do. We don't get taught how to do these things in elementary school or high school or college, and I think that's a big problem.
No, it absolutely is because, as you've said, we all have one. And I know as someone who worked in sports, played sports, there was that was so prevalent, of course, in good and not so good ways. What does the inner voice exist for in the first place, right? Like from your lens, what does it exist for in the first place, and what is it trying to do for us?
So your inner voice, you could think of it as a kind of Swiss Army knife of the human mind. So it's a multi-purpose tool that lets you do many different things. Your inner voice is a key part of your working memory system. What does that mean? Well, you have a system inside your brain, we all do, that is specialized for letting you keep information active for short periods of time. So if you meet someone at a party and you can't whip out your cell phone to write down what their name is, but you really want to remember, you might repeat that name a few times in your head. Molly, Molly Fletcher, Molly Fletcher, Molly Fletcher. Your inner voice helps you do that. You may go to the grocery store and want to remind yourself of what you're supposed to get, what your partner told you to get. So you might repeat the grocery list in your head. That's your inner voice. using this working memory system. So we all rely on our inner voice for that reason every single day. But that's just one thing it does for you. Your inner voice helps you simulate and plan. Like before I give a big presentation, I will go over my opening talking points in my head, right? Before I have a difficult conversation with a colleague or student, where I have to maybe deliver some bad news, I'll imagine what I'm going to say. I'll hear how they're going to respond, and then I'll respond to that. So what am I doing there? I'm simulating how the interaction may transpire and coming up with solutions to equip myself to succeed. We use our inner voice to motivate and control ourselves. Just this morning, I had a tiny bit of chatter this morning, like it happens to all of us.
Sure.
And I said to myself, Ethan, what are you doing? What would you tell your buddy if he was going through this? You would say, you are being bleeping ridiculous. What I'm doing there is I'm using my inner voice to motivate and control myself. When I give presentations, I will also often ask an audience, how many people here like to exercise? 55% of the audience's hands will go up. And then I go, okay, how many of you, forget the like part, how many of you exercise at all? And then you get almost the whole room, right?
Sure.
And then I ask, okay, put your hands down. And then I say, okay, how many of you talk to yourself silently when you exercise? And it's a great reaction. Like you'll see the room. Sometimes it's like hundreds, thousands of people, and you'll see a few hands go up, and people will look around. And then once they see that it's okay to raise your hand, almost everyone's hand goes up. And then my favorite part of the presentation is like, all right, I'd love to know, what do you say to yourself when you exercise? And all sorts of interesting things come up. Some people are saying, I just count down the number of reps left. Or I work on another problem at work and I try to think through that problem. Or I call myself a bleep, bleep, bleep and say to bleep, bleep, bleep. And I mean, it's wild. And so there's this phenomenon. When you put people in situations that require motivation and control, we often use our inner voice to help coach us through those scenarios. You used to play tennis at a very high level. Did you ever use your inner voice for that reason?
I used it absolutely. I mean, I it hurt me in a lot of moments, right? And then I worked on ways to help it serve me, but 100%, right? I mean, and tennis players, we sort of talk to ourselves, right? You're walking back to pick up the ball and you're so bad. What are you doing here, right? Like all the... And then you get back up to the line to serve again and you try to sort of say, you got this. You've been here before, right? So 100%. It's so prevalent for me, but I think for athletes in general.
That's a third feature. And then the fourth thing we use our inner voice for, the fourth reason we believe we evolved this tool is, for me, the most magical feature of your inner voice. Your inner voice helps you make sense of this messy thing called life. Like, we go out there, we want to do our best, we get challenged in all sorts of ways. Things don't work as we expect. People act in ways that are maybe tricky. And when that happens, when we encounter moments that don't kind of fit with our view of the world, it's like a giant pause button is hitting your brain that says, okay, let's figure out what's going on now so we could get back on with our lives. And you use your inner voice in those situations to come up with stories that help you make sense of what you're going through. Well, I lost that match, but I've won 100 other ones, so I guess everyone loses at times. Or, I screwed up that deal, but at least I learned a lesson and I won't screw it up the same way again. Right? So those are ways in which you're using language to work through a problem, to help you just keep on moving. So if we pause right there, memory, keeping things active in your head, simulating and planning, motivating and controlling yourself, making meaning out of your life. This is a very valuable tool. The problem, of course, is it also, it's like a hammer is a very valuable tool. My grandfather was a master carpenter, truly. Like he could do anything with his tool belt. And I remember when I was a kid, he was like he was refinishing the basement in my house growing up. And I was a little kid and I grabbed the hammer. I didn't know how a hammer works, so I just banged it on the cement floor outside, and it damaged the floor and it broke the hammer.
Right.
The same is true with our inner voice. If you don't know how to harness it, this unbelievably valuable tool can become a terrible tool of the mind. And it can cause massive destruction. Me not knowing you very much at all, I'm going to guess that there have been moments in your life on the tennis court, not field, or often in your personal life where you have gotten stuck in a negative thought loop in ways that have been destructive. Fair to say?
100%. No question about it. For sure. A lot. I think it happens.
And it's all of us.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to use science to help people help themselves in those moments.
And I want to get to some of the solutions, because to me that's particularly interesting. But sort of I'm curious, what are some of the most common triggers for what maybe you would call negative spiraling, right? Like where they're just the mental, it's just going and going in the spiral. And what's sort of the most common triggers for that state?
Well, I will answer the question, I promise. I'll give you a little bit of a caveat first, but I'm going to come back to it. We all have different triggers, and I will often ask people to just write what their chatter triggers are, and it always amazes me. For some people, it's a sense of imposterism and self-doubt. For other people, it is wanting to impress others, living up to certain standards, perfectionism. If you were to call me though and say, "Hey, Ethan, let's say you were a very nefarious person, which you're not, but I want you to design a set of circumstances that are capable of eliciting massive chatter for the world," right? You're the expert. What would you do? Well, I would create a situation in which the outcome was really unclear, so it was uncertain what's going to happen next, and I would take away any control that you have in influencing what could happen next. So situations involving high degrees of uncertainty and a lack of control, those are two very common building blocks that activate chatter. And the thing about life is life often meets those conditions. We don't know what's going to happen next, and we often don't have control over what's going to happen next. And so we are guaranteed to be in those situations, which makes it so absolutely vital to understand how to harness this inner voice so that it doesn't kind of fly off the handle when you do find yourself in those moments.
Sure. Which they do, right? And it feels, and one of the things that I saw in sports so much is the best athletes have self-doubt too, right? I mean, best of the best have it. They just don't, at least from my non-PhD lens, sort of, they don't see it, they don't let it stay in that space for long at all. They get themselves out of that state remarkably quickly. Like in next
play mentality,
next play mindset, exactly. And then I also, there's this expect the expected, right? Like expect for a teammate maybe to not get back on D, expect a guy to drop a pop fly, and so that we change the way we show up in those moments. So I think this is it's so interesting. I'm curious, when we think about recovering quickly when we find ourselves in that state or in that place, obviously recognizing it's essential, because I would imagine there's so much automation inside of it that happens. And so sometimes we don't even realize that we're talking to ourselves like not even like nobody we would ever want to talk to, a dear friend of ours, right? So I'm just sort of curious, are there tools that you recommend for people to see it, recognize it, stopgap it, and then ways to come out of those negative thoughts quickly, which feels important in sports, certainly, but also in life?
Well, sports is an interesting microcosm here. As I've often said to athletes and coaches, with sports, what you have is you have people who are already at the top, very, very top of their discipline, and they're competing against other people at the very top of their discipline. The nature of sports brings those kinds of opponents together. So you already have a really tough situation in which you're typically not sure how things are going to work out. Like, people are so well balanced. And then on top of that, you surround the individuals with other people who are watching. And we know that we're a social species, so we care about what other people think. And so you're layering in now another source of stress. And then on top of that, you're layering digitally around all of that now an ecosystem that allows millions and millions of people who are not present in that stadium to comment, watch, observe. And so this is essentially like a cauldron for allowing chatter to foment. So when that happens among athletes or anyone, because we all do experience chatter, this is not exclusive to athletes, of course.
Sure.
What can you do? There are really three steps to managing chatter. Number one, you already identified it. You've got to be able to identify that you are in that state, right? Being able to label it like, oh yeah, I'm in that moment right now. In my experience, people get really good at doing that. Once you explain what chatter is, now someone has a label to describe. Oh, I get it. Yeah, I'm getting stuck in a negative thought loop. I didn't ever realize I was in a negative thought loop before.
Right.
Now I know what a negative thought loop is. I have a problem. I'm trying to make progress, but I'm not succeeding. All right, I'm in chatter. That's number one. You got to be able to recognize it. Number two, you have to believe that there's something that you can do to manage it. This is critically important. Having this sense of self-efficacy. I do have the capacity to push my chatter around. Just to impress on you who are listening why this is so important. Let's say you had the goal, like you wanted to lose weight and get really fit. If you didn't believe that there was anything you could do to achieve that outcome, why on earth would you like buy a membership to join a gym and wake up early or go late and do these terribly painful things? I mean, I went to the gym this morning. It was not fun. I mean,
I can tell.
This was painful what they had me do. Like, why am I doing that? Because I believe it's good for me, right? I believe I can do things. So you got to believe it. But then the third piece is, once you show up to the gym, you got to know how to use the different machines. You got to know what the different machines are for. Like, if you just drop someone in a gym and you ask them to, hey, get fit, they might hurt themselves, right? Like, because these are potentially dangerous machines. This is why kids aren't often allowed in gyms. And so what we're talking about here are tools. There are lots and lots of tools that exist for managing chatter, for managing your emotions more generally. But we are not very good about teaching people how these tools work. What I love about this space is so much science and hard work has gone into researching these tools, figuring out how they work, what's happening in your brain, how they're pushing around your hormones and all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, in the same way that I could teach you how to do a push-up in 60 seconds, I can teach you about how a lot of these tools work really, really fast. And so I think that's the challenge we all face is to learn what those tools are, practice them, share them.
Yeah. And no, I mean, relative to identifying when we are telling ourselves something that isn't taking us where we want to go, right? Like, and I want to unpack some of the tools that you unpack in chatter, but recognizing that, identifying that is I think so huge. Absolutely. And so I want to unpack that a little bit, but also
Yeah.
truly believing in our ability is obviously essential. And then knowing what to do with it. But one sort of question that I'm curious about, just probably a little bit naive, but why? Why do we have negative thoughts? Right? Like,
Wouldn't
because
the
it's
world
not
be nice without
usually
them?
serving. Right? Exactly. It would be. Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
I would
hey, we go to
imagine
great
from a
lengths to
human
get rid of them.
Right. I mean, I'm sure from a human perspective, it's there to prevent us from danger, maybe. But I'm not sure. But I'm curious. When we know it isn't taking us where we want to go, when I would stand at the line when I was playing and say, "You're going to double fault again, and now you're going to be down love 30," like,
Yeah.
when I know that doesn't serve me, why would you? So I'm just curious. Why do we even have them?
A negative. So it's not a naive question. It's a great question, and there's a counterintuitive answer. We evolved the ability to experience negative emotions, which are often fueled by negative thoughts. Because when they're experienced in the right proportions, what do I mean by that? Like, when they don't last too long or when they're not experienced too intensely, they're actually really, really useful. What do I mean by that? Let's take anxiety. Like, everyone loves anxiety. Don't you love a little bit of anxiety? I will tell you, when I think about one of the worst presentations I ever gave early in my career, I was just I showed up. I was just totally flat. There was no energy, no mojo in that room whatsoever. Like, the audience wasn't feeling it. I wasn't even either. And I think back, what went wrong, back then? Well, I didn't have, it was a low stakes event. I didn't have any anxiety a few days before, which is often the cue that jolts me out of whatever I'm doing and basically motivates me to, hey, look at my notes and my slides and prepare and maybe run through things. So I didn't do I just showed up, right? And I kind of phoned it in. Anxiety motivates us to pay attention to things that matter. That is a very useful signal to have. And what makes anxiety so incredibly vital is that it hurts. We don't want to be in this state, so it quickly motivates us to do something about it. An analogy here that I find really resonates powerfully with me is the experience of physical pain. Like, I'm not a masochist. Like, I do not like physical pain. Any of my my daughters and wife will attest to this, so will my GP, right? Like, I don't like it, yet I value what it does for me. There are kids born into this world every year, and they cannot experience any physical pain due to a genetic blip. You might think, oh, they might be really happy, like, no pain. God, like, we do lots of things to minimize that. Well, they end up dying early because things like they get their hand caught in a stove, like the fire, that is, of a burner, and there's no cue that says, pull my hand away, right? Or they scratch a mosquito bite because it itches. They can still experience itchy sensations, but they start bleeding. They have no sensory feedback, pain sensory feedback saying, hey, stop it. So in the right proportions, all of our negative emotions are useful. The problem here is, often in life, we don't experience these negative thoughts, negative states proportionally, right? It's not just, oh shit, I screwed that up. Let me work, more. It's, why did I screw that up? My God, I'm going to screw up the next one. And once you get into that zone that undermines your ability to think and perform, it creates problems in your relationships, and it damages both your physical health and subjective well-being, which is why I think it is such a colossal problem that we need to pay attention to.
Sure. No, absolutely. And I'm curious, when we do identify it, right, to sort of lead into, when we do notice that we're having the kind of chatter that isn't serving us, that isn't the story that we need to hear, is the goal to quiet it, right? Or is it to move through it? Is it to reframe it? Is it something else? I mean, what's the goal when we do identify it? beyond sort of the
goal
obvious.
Yeah, the goal is you ultimately do want to work through it, and shorten, like you want to decrease its volume, so have that voice being less loud, less distracting in your mind, and also like reduce the amount of time that you spend in that state. Sometimes we can flip it completely and turn it from a critic into a coach.
How do we
I
do
have
that quickly?
Yeah. Like tell me now, right now.
Yeah, hit me. But wait, Ethan, can you hold on 1 second? I've got to just open this door. Sorry.
Go for it.
1 sec.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. So, and look at perfect
So-
timing, a siren.
Oh, is that on my end or yours?
No,
My
no.
end, I think.
Yeah, it's okay though. But yeah, no, hit me with that.
So sometimes we can do it, but other times, basically, the more intense the situation, generally the more time it takes to kind of bring it under control. But the more bang you often get from these tools. So just like working out, there are different exercise routines and disciplines that work for different people. Like my wife does Pilates and stretching. I've never done a Pilates class. I'd like to, but I've been told this is where the joint activities end. So I've done I do weight training, and you haven't seen
When
me
you come
when it
to
comes
Atlanta, we're gonna your wife and I, and we're gonna all go to
We'll all do
Pilates because it's
Pilates.
killer.
So yeah, I don't do that, but I'll do other things
Sure.
that work really well for me. So different people benefit from different routines, and we've done research in my lab which demonstrates that. What do I do? First thing I do is I will use a tool called distant self-talk. That's a mouthful. I'll coach myself like I'm giving advice to my buddy, and I will actually use language to talk to myself like I'm talking to another person. I'll use my name and the word you silently to coach myself about, all right, Ethan, how are you going to manage this? Here's what I think you should do. It's like I'm coaching someone else. Molly, I am a really good coach to other people who are going through problems. I'm constructive. I can share with them tools that I know a lot about that can put them on the right track. But sometimes when I slip into chatter, I say things to myself that like I wouldn't say to my worst enemy.
Right.
And so we know that as a species, people are much better at giving advice to others than taking that advice themselves. This is a universal.
Sure.
It's why your kids have probably said, like you've probably told your kids to do stuff that's good for them, and they've probably like turned around at one point and said, but you don't do that, right? Why should I?
That never happens,
true?
Ethan. I don't know what you're talking about. Never. Yes, of course. Yes.
The next episode, it will be on denial, and we'll talk about that one.
No, it absolutely does. Mostly my driving. I'm like, don't do this.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we're built, right?
Sure.
We cannot, when we're not in the cauldron, it's easy for us to be wise and logical. When you use the word you or your name to refer to yourself, what it's essentially doing is it's automatically switching your perspective. Most of the time you use the word you, it's when you're addressing someone else, right? Like you need to do this. So when you use the word you to refer to yourself, it's putting you in this frame of mind where now I'm in this kind of coaching, advising mode. And that breaks me out of the automatic mode of chatter city. So that's one thing I'll do.
I love it.
Another thing I'll do, super simple, is something called mental time travel. I will typically first go into the future and ask myself, how am I going to feel about this next week, next year, 5 years from now? I have lived through millions and millions of emotional reactions, of negative reactions, little blips of chatter, and all of them have followed the same time course. I'm living life. Something happens, boop, chatter's activated. Sometimes it's really activated, sometimes less so. And then as time goes on, the chatter subsides. Sometimes, if it's a really big thing, it may take longer to subside, but eventually it always subsides. And that is a truism of how our emotions work. They're activated, and then as time goes on, they fade. Time heals all wounds. That's where it comes from.
Sure.
When we are in the midst of chatter, we lose sight of that because you get so narrowed in, you think to yourself, it's always going to be this way, and it's suffocating. That, in part, drives the chatter further.
Yeah.
When I jump into what I call my mental time travel machine, and I go into the future, how am I going to feel about this next week? It automatically reminds me that what I'm going through is temporary. It will eventually fade. And that gives me hope. That's really helpful. Then the third thing I'll do is I'll get back into that same mental time travel machine. And then I'll go back in time. And typically I'll go to one point in time, 1943, Eastern Europe, Poland. It's where my grandmother and grandfather lived when the Nazis invaded. And the Nazis invaded, they slaughtered almost all of their family. They were then homeless for several years, eventually survived. There's a happy ending to the story. But I don't have to spend a whole lot of time with them to realize, oh my.
Right.
If they were capable of getting through that, I can get through this. And so that's a way of broadening my perspective. It's another way that time travel can help us. And boy, is that a really powerful tool for breaking me out of a funk. So those are my personal 3 go-tos. And I would say 65% of the time, that's all I need to do. If that's not sufficient, then I go deeper into my toolbox. I go for a walk in nature. We know that also can shift your perspective, right? Makes you feel smaller when you look up at the beauty all around you. I'll call my chatter advisors. I've got a chatter advisory board, and I encourage everyone to have that.
I love that. And so it's sort of your personal board of advisors, people that talk to you like a great coach would.
Yeah, and there's a science for how to do it, and I've put it like in the same way that an organization puts a lot of effort in selecting the people to be on their boards. I've done the same with mine. So what makes a good chatter advisor? They do 2 things. Number 1, first they listen and they empathize, right? They learn about what I'm going through. They communicate to me that I'm not an alien for feeling the way I am, right? Like I know they have my back. They meet what we call my social and emotional needs. But then after they learn about what I'm going through, I get it out, then they start working with me to broaden my perspective. Because sometimes it's hard to break out of that moment. So they're like, but Ethan, you've been through something like that. You dealt with that thing last year. Let's keep things in reality. Like things are going pretty damn good, right? Yeah. So they're connecting and validating what I'm going through. But they're helping me reframe it. They're helping shift my perspective. They're not, importantly, just letting me vent my emotions endlessly, which we know from lots of research can be very good for strengthening the bonds between people. It's good to know I could call you up and you can just let me spew.
Sure.
But if all you do is vent and you don't actually try to reframe things, you often leave those conversations, you feel really good about the person who was there for you, but you're even more upset. You're even more anxious or sad because you've just spent all this time talking about all the stuff that's driving you nuts. And so my chatter advisors, they listen and then they advise. And they are an invaluable resource.
That's incredible. How many do you have?
I've got, when it comes to like professional stuff, maybe 6 or 7. Personal stuff, 3 or 4.
Yeah, no, that's cool. You know, it's interesting that you say that. I'm curious. What is, and I would imagine it varies, but the right amount of time. I'm sort of, as my clients used to say, Molly, you're like half girl, half guy, right? Like, because I want to get to the solution sooner than later, right? So how long do you, but then I sometimes try to go, wait, no, you got to listen a little bit more. You got to really be, but how long is is enough? And I know this is sort of a circumstantial sort of answer at some level, and maybe it's the more complex the problem, the longer you give them, but what's just a high level on that for people who are trying to support other people who maybe are, that you're their kind of advisor, if you will?
Yeah.
How much time do we give that?
I mean, this is such a common question, and I so wish I could tell you 3 minutes and 36 seconds of listening, and then you're in advice mode. Like, wouldn't that be nice? What we know is that the bigger the problem, typically the more time people need to spend just getting it out, right? Like it because that's serving a function of helping them kind of organize their thoughts and feelings to some degree.
Sure.
Here's what I do. The more you do this, the more you get a sense of when to go for it and switch to advice mode. If you're not really sure if the opening isn't clear, and what I mean by that is someone just hasn't spent, like, there's a version where, oh my God, can I just talk to you about this? You kind of go through it, and then you get to the end like, what do you think? Right? Like that often happens in a conversation. But in other moments, someone's going on about it and they're looping. And like, let's take my wife as an example. If she happens to be experiencing some chatter, which she seldom does, by the way, I experience it more than she does. But let's say it's her. If I'm not sure whether she's ready for me to kind of start going into like some coaching mode with her, I'll ask her. And sometimes it feels like I'm flipping a coin. I'll be like, I totally get it. Totally get it. I have a thought. Can I share? Are you ready? And sometimes it's like, yes, please. What do you think? Like, help. And other times it's like, I'm not done. I need to keep keep listening for a little bit.
Got it.
So and then I honor it. I listen and I try again a little bit later. And so there's some some finesse to that.
Yeah. But I love that question. Right? I have some thoughts. Are you open to that? Because they have an opportunity to say yes or no, right?
And for me,
which is cool.
It's critical. And for me, what's so powerful about this science is, number one, it scaffolds onto what we know about people and the needs that they have. When people are struggling, they've got emotional needs and they've got cognitive needs. They need to feel safe and secure, but they also need to solve the problem. So this gives you a roadmap as a support provider for how to help someone else. Before I knew about this work, people would call me, friends and family, to talk about bad things. And, I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm not clinically trained. I'm not sure what to say. Like, sorry feels really bad. I'm so sorry. Like, how many times can you say sorry in how many different ways, right?
Right.
Now, I have a roadmap when anyone comes to me with a problem for how to steer that conversation.
It's amazing.
And I also know, like, who the people in my life are that I should go to when I need help. Because sometimes people who care a lot about us, they love us, they're not aware of this, and they'll just kind of get us to vent about things in ways that are not helpful. And so I don't talk to those people about my chatter. I talk to them about lots of other things.
Sure.
But not that. And so it's an incredibly helpful bit of information for me personally.
So I think those tools are incredible, and I encourage people to check that out in Chatter. And of course in Shift you've got great content as well. One of the things that came up for me as I listened to some of the tools that you've shared, I think they're incredible. I love this perspective talking about Ethan and you, and the going out into the future, the perspective. I'm curious what role giving to other people can play in our ability to shift our inner voice, doing something for someone else, whether it's baking them cookies or going to work at a food kitchen.
Yeah.
Where does that fall as it relates to helping us shift out of negative chatter?
This is one of my favorite findings in social psychology. One of the best ways of helping you feel better is to actually help someone else. And in some ways, I think this is counterintuitive for a lot of people. Like, when you're struggling, you should focus on yourself, turn inward. And yet what we see time and time again is doing good things for others, whether it's the little things like, just taking a little bit of work off of someone's plate, or if it's your kid, like they're, helping them with their homework, or you giving to charity. This has this dual effect of A, helping the other person, B, you feel valued by helping that other individual, which makes you feel better about what's going on. It's a way of both broadening your perspective, getting you out of your head, but also at a very, very deep and primitive level, contributing to your clan. Like, we are a social species. And so there are powerful drives that motivate us to keep the group strong. And so, it's how often do you find a win-win solution, right? Like, help others to help yourself.
Totally.
It's like some people say, oh, that's a negative interpretation about it. Like, I don't care. It's good for everyone. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Like, if you're helping your community, if your sole motivation to do that is to help yourself, you're still doing a lot of great, a lot of good. So keep doing it.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me about the tools too was rituals, because I think we've all seen, we see it with athletes. I saw it all the time. Novak bounces the ball 9 times on his first serve, and we can go on about our boy Nadal, but it's unbelievable, the rituals, right? And I loved how you talked about that. You sort of said it gives you a sense of control inside of an anxious moment. How do we as people, not athletes, or how can we lean into a ritual maybe inside of or as we anticipate moments that do create angst or negative chatter?
Going back to what we said before, it's super simple. It's like learning to do a push-up, and then once you know how to do it, if you do them, they'll have some benefit. So a ritual, what is it? It's a rigid sequence of behaviors that you engage in roughly the same way each time. So, Nadal, he's going to walk the same way on the tennis court each time with his bag over the same shoulder, and, he'll bounce a ball a particular time. And there are lots of rituals that exist, right? That we totally. We're given rituals, like there are a lot of religious rituals that people the world over engage in, and we make up our own rituals. The reason they help us is because we often experience chatter. Let me rephrase that. When we're experiencing chatter, we often don't feel like we're in control. These negative thoughts are taking over. They're taking us places we don't want to be, but they just keep goddamn going. Like, shut up.
Right.
Be gone with you. Like, why are you still here? Right? And we don't like that, because human beings, we crave control. All of us. Yeah. We want to feel like we're capable of handling our own circumstances. A ritual is under your control. You can perform that ritual the same way each time. And when you do that, it leads to what we call compensatory control. You're compensating for the lack of control you feel in your head by exerting control on things around you. This is also why so many people like to clean and organize when they're stressed out.
I've heard you talk about that, and I've validated my cleaning problem when I get stressed out, because it's true. It's amazing.
Me too, and it's like you're putting things away nice and neat and tidy. Like, wouldn't it be great, Molly, if you could clean up your mind, your head, the same way you could clean up your office at will? Well,
let's spray some Windex in here, right? Let's do it.
Yeah. There you go. So it's a way of, these are behavioral tools for managing our emotions. And once you know about how these tools work, like take cleaning and organizing, like, my God, I've been doing that since I'm a kid. Never knew why. I would just kind of stumble into it when I was stressed out about something. But now that I know how this works, I weaponize it. The moment I feel the chatter brewing, I start cleaning and organizing. And so that's really the value here is you're not waiting to use some of these tools. You're being really strategic because you know what they are. So the moment you decide, hey, I want to start getting into mental shape right now,
Yeah.
you start using the techniques.
Yeah. And I would almost think it would be cool to consider what you've shared and pull back and say, I'm gonna lean into you and Molly. I'm gonna lean into, mental time travel. I'm gonna lean into because we need it visible, don't we? At some level, we need it in front of us to begin to use it when we find ourselves going there, which is critical and a part of, I know, your other work, emotional regulation, which I mean, that's a whole nother conversation that we can have. It's such incredible work. But tell me, mental fitness, and you have a lab. Tell me a little bit about what you've launched at the University of Michigan relative to mental fitness. So cool.
We've just launched, we're really excited about this. We've launched this new institute here, and what our goal here is really what we're calling a moonshot goal. Moonshot, place someone on the moon, like people thought this was impossible. Like our moonshot goal here is to substantially improve societal well-being by helping teach people about these different tools for how to manage their emotions, because we're not doing a great job of doing that, but also doing new research to really innovate in this space to find new solutions to how to supercharge emotion regulation even further. And so we're launching lots of efforts to do that here. We're setting up a think tank, developing new educational programs where folks can come here, do workshops, take classes, partnering with TED to try to broadcast this much more strongly. So, lots of excitement.
Well, it feels so important, too, because, I mean, we live in a world where, and we didn't, phones, I have 3 daughters, my husband and I, 22, 21, and 21, and, I mean, we're coming off the holiday break, and I was right there for 30 days watching this phone activity, right? And to me, I can't even imagine the connection and the importance for us as parents to ensure that Dabo Sweeney said to me once, Molly, ships don't sink from the water outside. They sink from the water that gets inside, right? And these phones are just this barrage of a highlight reel of other people's lives that candidly probably in part isn't all, I mean, it's a highlight reel. It's not it's not the inner critic, right? Usually, necessarily. So this work is so cool that you're doing, Ethan. The world needs it. I don't know though. I've actually spoken at the University of Michigan at the Big House once, which was
nice.
Pretty cool. I wore my green and white. It worked out great. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't. But
well, I did give a talk at MSU a couple of years ago, and
I must not have been available. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, touche. It felt like I felt like totally Superman on planet Krypton, because everything was in green, and it was the only moment in my life where I was introduced, and this is Ethan Kross, professor at the University of Michigan. The only time there was a collective groan that was so it was fun. But I love the Spartans.
Maybe we can pick you off over in Spartan land, because this work you're doing is so critical. It's so important. I mean, I'm really, all kidding aside, I mean, this is so critical, and I think it's particularly critical in our world today. It is a remarkably essential, and I think it ties to confidence, clearly, which is an essential tool. I mean, for me, I'm passionate about helping women and my young daughters, and confidence is critical, and I know it ladders up to your work in so many ways. Our inner voice drives that for sure. So I want to end with some rapid fire. I know we're kind of I've used up too much of your expensive time. So what's the book you most recommend? What's the book you most recommend?
The book I most recommend is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It's the book that got me interested in this space as a college student, and I've read it almost every year since college, assigned it to all my students.
You're kidding.
Powerful story about the power to make meaning in even the worst circumstances, and I think it provides a beacon of hope for all of us.
Amen. I love one of my favorites too. What's a habit or practice that's improved your life?
Exercising every morning provides physical clarity, providing mental clarity.
What's a piece of advice that you go back to most often?
Reframing mistakes as opportunities to learn and grow. Game changer.
I love it. Who or what's a game changer who inspires you and why?
Who? It sounds cliche, but my wife and daughters, amazing sources of inspiration for a lot of different reasons, and really as students, an extension of that too is there's this you look at students and there's often such just thirst and hunger to do new things and have impact, and that's really inspiring.
That's
Try to
awesome.
stay
I love
connected
it.
to that. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Ethan Kross, super fun. I can't wait to be with you, have some coffee, and connect, whether it's in Atlanta or Michigan.
Likewise.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.